Hello, welcome to SNL. My name's Keith. With me as always, my good buddy Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Keith.
So, Matt, tonight we're just doing a little mini episode to talk about our top 5 favorite hosts from season 3 of Saturday Night Live. How does that sound to you, my friend?
That's pretty good. I was pretty, you know what? There was one I struggled with, but for the most part, yeah, maybe there was two. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, overall, I thought the hosts were a better plate than we've had the first 2 seasons. We did have, a wide range. We did have your non-performer in there, 2 of them actually. But overall, I thought it was a good slate of new and returning hosts.
I have to agree, and no Ralph Nader. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. Matt, number 5. Who was your 5th favorite host of the year?
My 5th favorite host of the year was O.J. Simpson.
Okay.
I think he was shockingly charismatic. I mean, I shouldn't say shockingly because I knew he was going to be because of the Naked Gun. But when I go, as I try to view it through that lens, he just fit in really well with the cast. He seemed like he was having a good time, and he was just really good at everything they asked him to do. Fucking murderer.
I was going to say most sociopaths seem quite charismatic. Most alleged sociopaths. My number 5 was Buck Henry. All things considered, this was a pretty crummy year for Buck based on his episode numbers, but he still brings enough to it, and maybe this is sort of I love Buck, so I got to keep him on the list. Disappointed with Buck's episodes this year, but certainly wasn't disappointed with Buck.
Totally understandable, Keith, and if I may segue, my number 4 is Buck Henry for pretty much the reasons that we're discussing here. So let's discuss them together. Maybe sometimes I did go in with too high expectations. You had mentioned that to me previously. But yeah, there was something, I don't want to say safe, or it just felt a little like old hat. There wasn't anything, I don't know. It lacked a freshness this season that that I had gotten used to perhaps. But I mean, still top 5 of the season. For sure, because he brings it. I'm not saying it's on him, the quality of the sketches he's in all the time, because he just goes out and he plays Buck Henry in every friggin' sketch that he's in. So it just lacked a little freshness for me this season, I guess.
Yep. 4 for me was Christopher Lee. Really enjoyed his appearance on the show. Gave it a different tone, of course. I thought he did some interesting things with material that we don't get to see Christopher Lee do very often.
Christopher Lee did not make my top 5 list, but I remember being such a pissy brat going into that episode about him hosting and not doing Dracula. And I was so unreasonable about it. I'm crossing my arms, scowling at the episode. No, not quite like that. But I definitely enjoyed it, and I really liked that the death sketch. Do you remember that one?
Yep, Mr. Death, yep.
My number 3, Charles Grodin.
Mine as well, so we can talk about that together.
Brilliant. I, again, was not sure what to expect. I only know Charles Grodin from, kind of like his 80s comedies growing up. I guess I kind of wanted him to do that because, you want what's familiar to you just naturally, biologically. But I thought he really delivered. He was really interesting in the sketches, but he was never not Charles Grodin. You know what I mean?
Yep. And they kind of worked it around that. I mean, for those that haven't seen the episode, they played the whole episode as if Grodin hadn't rehearsed and didn't know who the cast members were and such. And he was even like when they did the audience Chiron, he was even randomly sitting in the audience, and the Chiron said, "This week's host," and he was sitting there as if, "Isn't this where I'm supposed to sit?"
I remember the smile on his face. His cheesy smile. And holy shit, his Art Garfunkel. I was in stitches. The way he just stared up vacantly, looking into space with that wig on. It was terrific.
Yeah, real work of art, that episode. They did overdo it a little bit. But, I mean, people to this day, well, not many, but a few people to this day still think it was a legit thing. Number 2, Matt?
My number 2 host of the season, Chevy Chase.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, I missed Chevy Chase. Listen, and I say it all the time. I say it on the podcast. I say it to people in real life. I don't give a shit what you think. Chevy Chase is funny. Chevy Chase is always been fun. I shouldn't say always been funny because he doesn't, maybe later he's not funny. But Chevy Chase is funny. I don't care if he's an asshole. I don't know him. We don't talk. And if you're going to talk to somebody and you've heard he's an asshole for 40 years, maybe you're not so upset about it. Maybe you relax a little and just, roll with the punches. But anyway, regardless of what Chevy Chase is as a person, he is funny. And I liked seeing him do Ford again. That sketch in bed with Gilda was great. And seeing him on Weekend Update was a nice treat. And he played this like clueless baggage inspector who had a bunch of drugs under his nose, and he was still looking through like shirts and shit. That's the kind of, there's like a moronic humor. He plays that moron so well. Nobody else on the show can do it. And that's a totally a character, a style that's now missing from the show. It was really nice to see him back, and it was a highlight for me.
Number 2 for me was Richard Dreyfuss. I was blown away by what we got from Richard Dreyfuss as a host. Like we said a number of times, we didn't really know what we were going to expect. I know he's done some comic work, but 3 minutes into the show, I thought he could have been a regular. And he was great throughout. And he also, Belushi wasn't too welcoming to him. So he had that to work against as well. But I was just absolutely blown away by Richard Dreyfuss's hosting duty. He was in as much of the show as any host could be. Firm number 2 for me with Richard Dreyfuss.
I love Richard Dreyfuss. And again, everybody tells me like I'm in like the variety circles. Everybody tells me Richard Dreyfuss is an asshole. But, we don't shit on Richard Dreyfuss all the time like we do with Chevy Chase. Whatever. We're not here to talk about that. Richard Dreyfuss, holy shit. I couldn't believe how good he was. I don't like Richard Dreyfuss movies generally, unless it's What About Bob. But as I try to think of Richard, like I don't Mr. Holland's Opus. That's not for me. And, I like Jaws. Okay, that's fine. But after that, I'm like, where do I go for Richard Dreyfuss? And I don't really go anywhere. So this was a really nice treat. He seemed to be having a really good time. Just really sunk into his characters on the show. And I don't know, maybe he fucking hated it, and he's a brilliant actor. He's a brilliant actor. So they tell me, outside of What About Bob and Jaws, I'm not really a big Richard Dreyfuss guy.
You really got to watch Close Encounters. I think you'd enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, I've never seen Close Encounters.
Number 1, are we both agreed that it was Steve Martin?
Steve Martin, yeah, come on.
Yeah, he had a rough start. That first episode was shit, which makes it harder to come back. But boy, did he come back. His episodes with Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and then with the Blues Brothers, fantastic. Really told me this year, those 2 episodes, more than any other, why Steve Martin is the quintessential host of his generation, and probably, to be fair, of the show up.
I mean, no wonder when I was a kid growing up, I always just thought he was on the show as a cast member. I never realized he wasn't part of the gang for years as I, was growing up from kid to teenager. I didn't really watch Saturday Night Live when I was a kid, but you know what I mean. I definitely just thought he was part of the show. He just fits in so well. And, sure, maybe he does get 3 kicks at the can to get it right this season. Whatever. He is a consummate professional. Brilliant musician on top of everything. He brings such classic, memorable sketches and characters to the show. How could he not be number 1? I mean, 3 times this season.
Yeah,
that's a zenith.
All right. Well, thanks very much for listening to this mini episode. We'll be back, and as you hear this one, there'll be some other ones going up. Top music, top 10 sketches, and a few other little doozies as well. Keep an eye out for season 4 coming very soon from Matt and I. But until then, thanks for listening to SNL.